Okay, class, we're going to look at this idea of formula fiction. Last year, we had a lot of conversations about the idea of the differences between potato chips and chocolates. And I said that when you get into 12th grade AP Lit, that this is where it would become more prominent and more important to understand this, especially in the world of fiction. So this is in an area we call formula fiction or formulaic writing. I hope you read the pages that you're supposed to, pages 23 through 29 for homework so that you were actually through 30, so that you are prepared for this discussion. So I would highly suggest that you take notes on this because it's going to be something that you're going to actually do as part of your homework tonight with another piece of literature. Okay, so first of all, we have this idea of literary quality. In class today, we talked about the idea of canon, which is just that reminder of that idea of the higher literary quality. And that's what we're looking for, that's what we're searching for in the realm of AP literature. But the problem is that most of what people read is what we call mainstream literature. It's your vampire books, it's your westerns, it's your love stories. You go to the grocery store and you see a book sitting on the shelf. It's that type of book. It's the type of book that everyone wants to pick up. Harry Potter, Hunger Games, that's the same thing. The idea is that it appeals to the masses, that anyone can read it. You don't have to be educated, you don't have to be highly intelligent, but it's that idea that it's mainstream and it's accepted by everybody. The other aspect going along with this idea of mainstream is this idea of escape literature, is that you read a book to escape into it, to become part of it. It's like if you are so into a series of books. I was this way with Harry Potter, is that I almost felt like I was a character at Hogwarts with them, moving along with it, and I escaped into that world. You can do the same thing with higher literary quality, but it's just not as many people get into the higher literary quality as much. I wish they did. Looking at this, and this is discussed on page 24, the idea of the main goal in formula fiction is to be sold. It's to make money. So that's why it's mainstream. That's why it's escape. That's why it's publicized. That's why it's on Oprah, the top 10 New York Times book list. People do this to make money. So they have the formulas, they fit the formula, they follow it so that they have that one goal of being sold. Now, every piece of literature that is a formulaic fiction or formula fiction novel has this idea of what we call a tip sheet. Now, a tip sheet is that if I am an aspiring author and I want to write romance novels and I go to Harlequin Enterprises and I say, I want to write for you, and they say, okay, we'll give you a chance. Here is our tip sheet. They give me, these are the expectations and the rules basically of a Harlequin romance novel. Okay, and now these rules always apply. So no matter what I feel as an author, I can't change these rules. I have to follow this formula. And you notice formulas like this, you notice them in movies, in TV shows, and in other books you read. So formulaic writing is definitely out there. So let's look at the tip sheet for the Harlequin romance novels. Okay, I did not fill in the ideas here, but I want you to as we're going along. And these actually are discussed starting on page 26 in your book. So plot, it's the ideas, the story focuses on the growing relationship between the heroine and the hero, and they call them heroine and heroes. But there's no murder, there's no extortion, there's no external factors that are horrible. So yes, there are things that keep them apart, but love is that major interest. It's love that's the problem that follows along in the aspects. That seems a little boring, but Harlequin Romance is one of the largest selling series of novels in the world. Okay, heroine. The heroine is between a certain age, 19 to 28 years old. She reflects today's concerns in society. So her feelings, her emotions, her concerns. She's attractive, she's nicely dressed, she's glamorous, she's sophisticated, but she's not flashy or overly flashy. She's kind of like the girl next door that someone would recognize and think that she's cute and want to date and stuff like that. Um, she has a sense of herself. She has a little bit of a sense of humor. She can be independent, but she's not really independent, as in she needs somebody else as well. And I even like the fact that on page 27, it lists certain careers, secretary, nurse, teacher, interior designer, assistant manager. You notice these are not very high aspiring careers. It's like they still need someone to take care of them and to be that hero. Okay, so hero, he is older. He can be foreign, he can be American, but he's usually 10 years older. So usually he's going to be at least 29, but so late 20s to mid 30s. He's very professional. He's very successful. He's fit financially. He's in finances, doctor, publisher, architect, but something big, something with lots of money where he can actually take care of her. And he's slightly mysterious. So he's got that little pain in his eyes. He's got things a little hidden. He might have something from the past, like a divorce or a death in the family, or something to kind of be mysterious about him. Okay, the next aspect we have is secondary characters. These are what when we get into characterization in the next 2 weeks, this is what we're going to call our stock characters. These are our characters that don't really change the plot, but they kind of move some things along. So we have the other woman. So there might be that moment in there where the guy looks at another woman, so the main heroine gets jealous. But we have that interception there, or that mistaken identity. We also have the idea of the other man. He usually falls into two types. He can be the decent type when the hero's not around. He can be like the kind that's kind of helpful. And he's the one we'll see in the story that we're going to read in class tomorrow. Or he can be the selfish sort that tries to kind of mix things up and doesn't really want them to be get together. But he's not really a match for the heroine or the hero. So the hero will always win against this. And then we have other characters. You got doctors and nurses and family and friends and stuff like that. But they just drive the story. It's just like they're the little steps along the way in the story. Okay, setting. Is the idea. It's usually set in a contemporary location. It's usually romantic. There's usually like a big city, oceans, mountains, but it's exotic in the aspect of what's going on. Okay, love scenes are to a minimum. So yes, they will have sex before marriage, but it's not a requirement. It's a possibility, but it depends on the heroine's sensibilities. So if it's very religious and very tight knit, they won't be aspects in there. But it's definitely this idea of it being that these scenes will not be detailed, they will not be described in detail. So it kind of alludes to it versus putting it right out there. The next aspect is the idea that the writing, in order to appeal to the masses and be mainstream literature, it needs to avoid complex sentences. It needs to have shorter paragraphs. It needs to have quick imagery. It needs to have more dialogue. So the writing level is much lower than what you're used to, and they use lots and lots and lots of dead words. Okay, and the last thing, at the very, very top of page 30, it talks about the word count, 55,000 to 65,000 words, or 10 to 12 chapters. That's short. Okay, we're usually talking about 100 to 150 pages is the length of these novels. Okay, so now what I want you to do for homework is, keeping in mind this idea of a tip sheet, I want you to pick a movie or a TV series or another book series, and I want you to come up with the tip sheet for that. What type of plot does it always have? What type of female character, male character? What types of secondary characters? What types of setting? You can leave out the love scenes, the writing, and the length, but I want you to focus on the first 5. And I want you to write this in your notes, and we're going to share some of these formulas in class on Friday. And it can be something completely different. In the past, I've definitely had people do things like Fast and Furious, Game of Thrones. Those are okay. Hunger Games, Twilight, have fun with it. Do something you're comfortable with, and that you know enough about where you don't necessarily have to go look it up. You can just like, oh yeah, I remember that. Okay, have a good night, and I will see you in class tomorrow.